My feeling is this regarding the story about Nazism and Hitler and the Third Reich, that until we can actually face the truth about it all, we can never seriously correct the problems of the current day, nor can we ever fight Zionism and the New World Order and all of its manifestations until we recognize the truth about World War II. That the origins of the New World Order are found in the Talmud, and often vile occult work that is the basis of Jewish religious thinking today, just as when it first emerged during the Jewish quote-unquote captivity in Babylon. When I first became aware in my early years of the nature of the American political process, I mistakenly believed it was a matter of Democrat versus Republican. However, it took many years for me to realize that the real battle is actually between good and evil. And ultimately, I came to realize that those who are in command of the money power on our planet today, those who are pushing for a new world order, represent that evil.
Was horrendous.
You were both in Skull and Bones, the secret society.
It's so secret we can't talk about it.
What does that mean for America?
How many Americans have heard of the Great Hunger? Where between 1958 and 1962 in China, the regime that we had brought to power there when we toppled the regime of Chiang Kai-shek and brought the communists to power in 1949, that between 1958 and 1962, the communist government starved to death between 41 and 43 million people. You cannot understand anything going on today unless you understand there is a continuing revolution. And just last year, we completed another revolution as we bucked the communist regime that has taken over in Nepal. Nation after nation after nation is prepared for the ultimate goal, that age-old plan of a new world order. Well, Professor Leo Strauss at the University of Chicago taught his pupils all about Plato. And Plato is pivotal to an understanding of everything going on today. Plato's Republic really talked about this idea of creating an ideal or utopian society ruled by a so-called just man. And they were going to have this utopian society, and this was, of course, going to solve all the problems of humanity. And Professor Leo Strauss told his students, Plato had two messages. He had one message for the common students. He had another message for the elite students who were told the secret and are introduced to the mysteries. And the mysteries have existed since the beginning of recorded time and continue being promoted throughout the world today. Now, to understand the mysteries, you have to know a little bit about that time. Pythagoras had lived between 585 and 495 BC. He was the first in the great Greek philosophers. And he traveled to the East and studied the mystery religions, returned to Greece, and set up a school where the mystery religions were taught. Now, most of you may have heard of the Pythagorean dictum. You probably learned it when you took geometry. And that is the fact that a square plus b squared is equal to c squared. the sum of the square root of the two sides of a right-angled triangle is equivalent to the square root of the hypotenuse of the right-angled triangle. This is seminal to an understanding of geometry. Where did he get this idea? Have you ever wondered how the great pyramids were built? Have you ever wondered the marvels of the world, the Colossus of Rhodes? Have you ever seen depictions of what this was, the Temple of Zeus? The magnificent architecture that existed long before man had the capacity to build these things using normal human intelligence? Where did the knowledge come from? Well, about 2 generations after Pythagoras established his school for teaching the mysteries in Greece, along comes Socrates. Socrates' student was Plato, who lived from 428 to 347 BC, and Plato then, of course, had a student, Aristotle, and Aristotle had a student named Alexander the Great. And Alexander the Great set out to conquer the world, to fulfill this idea of creating this perfect and utopian society. With a very, very small force of Macedonians, some people say as few as 35,000, took on the greatest armies in the world. He challenged Darius, who was the emperor of Persia, with hundreds of thousands of men. Conquer Darius! And it allows, of course, Alexander to move into the Near East and the Middle East, into Afghanistan. Did you ever wonder how he did it? Was there an X factor that most people have never heard of? It's very, very rare that you will find people ever mentioning the secret of the mysteries. However, if we came across a book, it was written probably in the 1st century AD. It was written by Plutarch. The book is called Plutarch, The Age of Alexander. I have a copy. You can still get it. It's in print. On page 259, they talk about Alexander and the mysteries. And let me read you what he said. It seems clear that Alexander was instructed by his teacher not only in the principles of ethics and politics, but also in those secrets and more esoteric studies which philosophers do not impart to the general run of students, but only by word of mouth to a select circle of the initiated. The mysteries tell the secret and tell how you can tap into the hidden power. But this was not to be known by the common people. If you go to Strasbourg today, you will find a replica of the incomplete Tower of Babylon. It is where the European Union meets on a weekly basis. Why did they create a replica of the incomplete Tower of Babylon? Because that's what the European Union is all about. It is about the reconstitution of Nimrod's ancient plan and of basically creating a one world government under a ruling elite. The plan is much larger than the European Union, because there's to be an American Union, Mexico, United States, Canada, a South American Union, an African Union, an Asian Union, a union of the Arab states. And when all of these countries have given up their national sovereignty into trade blocs, then to unite them into a one world government with a one world currency, a one world ruler, and a one world religion. After the destruction of Nimrod's empire, people began moving other places, and you see the evidence of the tremendous knowledge that they had acquired in the Temple of Giza. It's perfectly aligned north, south, east, and west. How were they able to align that at that time? How were they actually able to move those gigantic stones into place and the perfect symmetry of that? 5,000 years ago? If you go to South America, you'll find the pyramids there, all aligned in the same order. The Mayan and Inca pyramids. Where did the knowledge come from? And what was this really all about? Well, in about 600 BC, when the Jews were living in Babylon, why the rabbis then were introduced to the mystery religions. And it was at that point that the Kabbalah was created. About the 1st century after the birth of Christ, there was a Christian heresy, was known as Gnosticism, which was really a Christian type of the Kabbalah. And then, of course, you find all throughout history this continuity of the mystery religions and of the secret. Certainly, this is what motivated the Knights Templar. And of course, the Knights Templar then persisted in the Holy Land until the defeat of the Crusades, and then they moved to Europe, where they became the most powerful force in Europe, all during the 1200s. And they persisted as the major force, the first international bankers in Europe. In the 1400s came the Rosicrucians, and they were simply another organization that had tapped into the secret knowledge. There are literally thousands of books that are written by people who are devotees of the New Age, indirectly back to Madame Blavatsky, who founded the Theosophical Society in 1835. And you begin to understand that these people worship a different God.
Hail, fellowship's eternal flame!
Yale University is 300 years old this year, and were you to visit its campus, you would see that it's where Yale's secret societies meet.
Senators, John Kerry and John Chafee, to name two, and three presidents, William Taft, George Bush, and George W. Bush. The tape is a valuable artifact, an extremely rare view into the secret society that groomed the American ruling class for generations.
The Kabbalah, and of the Knights Templar, and of the Rosicrucians, and of the Illuminati, and of the upper echelons of Masonry, of which most Masons have no idea. But the fact is that there is another God, and it's Satan.
A Soviet scientist, Shafarevich, who has nothing to do with religion, he's a computer scientist, did a very intensive research on the history of socialist countries. He calls socialist or communist any country with a centralized economy and a pyramidal style of power structure. And he discovered that civilizations like Mohenjo-Daro in the river Indus area, like Egypt, like Maya, Incas, like Babylonian culture, collapsed and disappeared from the surface of Earth. The moment they lost religion, they disintegrated. All the sophisticated technology and computers will not prevent society from disintegrating and eventually dying out. Have you ever met a person who would sacrifice his life, freedom, for the truth like that? This is truth. I never met a person who said, this is truth and I'm ready to defend the truth. Right? But millions sacrifice their life, freedom, comfort, everything for things like God, like Jesus Christ. It's an honor. Some martyrs in the Soviet concentration camp died. And they died in peace. Unlike those who shouted, long live Stalin. Something which is not material moves society and helps it to survive. And the other way around, the moment we turn into 2 by 2 is 4 and make it a guiding principle of our life, our existence, we die. Even though this is true, and this we cannot prove. We only can feel and have faith in it. So the answer to ideological subversion, strangely enough, is very simple. You simply have to have faith. In other words, don't try to be a person who in judo is trying to smash your enemy and being caught by your hand. Don't strike like that. Strike with the power of your spirit and moral superiority. If you don't have that power, it's high time to develop it. And that's the only answer.